Stormy Daniels gets pounded in court. She was up on the stand, questioned by Bragg's prosecutors, and then Susan Necheles, for Trump's defense, came out, brought out the truth that Stormy is a money-seeking, fame-hungry degenerate that we all know. And so we're going to go through this, of course. Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee is reporting, doing great work. We've got his links in our description below. But before we get into the trial testimony and then hear from Trump and Mike Johnson in the aftermath, let's see what Trump said to get the day started. He showed up in Manhattan. Now, there was a truth that Trump posted that he then deleted, and some people are saying that that's very curious. Why'd you delete the truth? Mr. Trump, why'd you delete
the Truth Social post this morning?
Where'd that go?
Are you a victim of extortion?
The country is on fire. There are protests all over the country. I've never seen anything like this. Many graduation ceremonies are being canceled. They're canceled, as you know, in Colombia.
It's gold.
They're canceling
not yellow.
A lot of them. And we have a president that just refuses to talk because he can't talk. You know that. And so does everyone else.
That's true. He has a hard time speaking.
Some of the statements made about
that's gold tie.
Which
You're right. Thank you for the correction.
On CNN, Michael Moore said the proof of falsifying records has not been accomplished. On Good Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You pay a lawyer expense payments.
Yeah.
We didn't put it down as construction costs, the purchase of sheetrock,
no,
the electrical cost. The legal expense that we paid was put down as legal expense. There's nothing else you could say. You don't have to put down anything, I guess, but we put down legal expense was legal expense. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Attorney?
Everyone's saying, oh, gee, that's the fraud. That's what they're trying to get us on. The fact that we call a legal expense. They marked it down in the books. The check was signed. And the other thing, this was approved by all agencies. Everybody saw this. There was nothing being hidden at all. That's what they're all writing now. There's been nothing hidden. And it went through agencies, and I guess it went through the IRS also. It went through IRS. It went through the FEC. It went through everything. Also, NBC Today showed the challengers that there is no smoking gun, no email or tape to prove the president's intent. They don't have a way to prove that. That's NBC Today show. And then Fox
nice
News,
headline, yeah.
Katie Cherkasky said that the gag order is unconstitutional, which of course it is. The gag order is unconstitutional. So with all that's going on, they have no case. Every single legal scholar that I see, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there, some whack job, but the virtually everyone that I've seen,
Judge
Andrew
Weissman,
absolutely no case. It's a case that shouldn't have been brought. The previous DA wouldn't bring it. Bragg didn't want to bring it, and he brought it because I'm running in #1 place.
And
this all
Colangelo
comes
went
out
down.
of the White House and crooked Joe Biden. This comes from the White House, and it's all Biden because it's an attack on his political opponent. That hasn't happened in this country. It does happen in third world countries, but it hasn't happened in this country, and it's a shame. And the trial is a very unfair trial. The good news is they have nothing. Thank you.
We appreciate that, Mr. President. Now you can see, it looks like we got a bunch of familiar faces in the house. I think that's Alina Abba over there. Eric Trump is back in the house. I saw Emile Beauvais over there. So, courtesy of Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press reporting. Now, we're back, but he says Trump has arrived. Blue suit, gold tie. He says this time his lawyer, Susan Necheles, sets up as the lead counsel seat to his right. Why might that be? We like to pair female to female. When a female's on the stand, you don't want a male to come up and beat the heck out of her. Doesn't look good. So they're going to put Susan Necheles up with Stormy Daniels. Pretty standard stuff. Now, she's doing the Stormy cross-examination today, of course, but is there contempt motions or arguments going to be heard first? We don't know. We're waiting around for the trial to get started, and the door pops open. All rise. Okay, here we go. Here's Judge Juan the Con Mercans back here. All right, please be seated. Clerk announces this is the time set for the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump, indictment 2024 dash. Judge Mercan says, before we begin, good morning. Anything that we need to discuss? Trump's lawyer, Susan Necheles, says, Your Honor, we are informed that Stormy Daniels is going to be the second witness today. That's why I'm here. And so we oppose any details of sexual acts. So I want to be clear about that. Stormy Daniels, they are opposing this line of testimony from the beginning. Judge says, well, what do you mean? Other than what? Like just we had sex? Like, can they say that? And the government says, Your Honor, no. You only limited details as to Karen McDougal, okay? You didn't limit the details for Stormy Daniels. So we need to get into that. This disgusting prosecutor, who probably hasn't been laid in a decade, says, Your Honor, the details are important here, okay? We have to talk about the sex act. Only certain details are unnecessary, but we need to get into this, man. I'm like excited about this. This prosecutor, hasn't had this much action in a long time. Susan says, I guess this is the prosecutor, which is why she wants to talk about it, especially if it's a female, says, we'll get into the conversation they had in the hotel and how the sexual act came about, how how Stormy felt about it, and we will not get into genitalia. That's nice. So they're not going to get into genitals. Trump's lawyer, Susan Necheles, Your Honor, there is no need for this at all. This is a case about books and records. Trump's been charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records. The crimes are invoices, ledgers, and checks. Nothing about intercourse, nothing about a conspiracy, nothing about genitals. Wammer Khan says, you know, this woman, Stormy, she has credibility issues, and so I think details are important. And so the judge says, I will allow them in. Call your witness. And they say, oh, wait a minute. Oh, the jury. Okay, bring in the jury first. So the jury comes in, and we are going to move forward. Now, the defense is going to call for a mistrial later on in the day, and the judge is going to tell them that you should have objected to more of this stuff. They're going to say, you should have objected to all of these details when it came out. And so let's put a pin in this one, because right here, they are saying we oppose any details. That is their objection. They don't need to continue to lodge it. The judge has already overruled them. And so the judge is going to come back and criticize them. Why weren't you objecting when all this was happening? Because they did. So we just make very clear notation of that. There's no need for this. He says, I don't care. I want the details too. He's also excited. So they bring in the jury. Now we're going to get through this first witness quickly before we get to Stormy. Government comes out and says, you know, the people call Susan Franklin to the stand. Susan walks up. This is different from the prosecutor, who's also named Susan. Susan, you promise to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help God? I do. All right, please be seated. Miss Susan Franklin, where do you work? She said, well, I work at Penguin Random House and its imprints, and I'm here under subpoena. Are you familiar? So she works for the book publishing company, it sounds like. Are you familiar with the book called Trump, How to Get Rich? She says, yeah. And for that book and another book, have you reviewed various excerpts from the book? She says, yeah. Well, I want to show you People's Exhibit, Government Exhibit 413 and 414. Is this from Trump's Think Like a Billionaire? She says, yeah. And what does it say under the title of Trump's book? It says, Big Deals from the Star of The Apprentice. And what's the largest word on the cover of this book, Susan? It's Trump. And if you could just give an estimate, what percentage of the cover does the word Trump take up? She says, well, I don't know, 30%, I'd say. And on Trump, Think Like a Billionaire, how big is the word Trump? I don't even know where we're going with this, but okay. She said, I don't know, maybe 25%. It's graphic design trial. Well, I'd like to introduce People's 413A. And she says, well, what does this say? It says, be like a general. And how about this? It says, if you don't know all the details, then you're setting yourself up. I guess these are excerpts from the book. Okay, be like a general, says Trump. Here's another rule from Thinking Like a Billionaire, you know, 12 steps to success, whatever. If you don't know all the details, you're setting yourself up. And what does this one say? It says, sometimes you still have to screw them, like it says in the Bible, an eye for an eye. Brutal, man. It's brutal out there in this world. And what does this one say, Susan? She says, all the women on The Apprentice flirt with me. And that's to be expected. So Trump's talking about being the star on The Apprentice. How about this 414? It says, with a decorator, make sure to see all of the invoices. You should be double checking. So Trump pays close attention to his bills. And how about this? It says, I always sign my checks to make sure where my money is going. Check through your bills. My parents hammered frugality into me at an early age. And how about this? It says, watch the bottom line because Weisselberg is tough. And they say, okay, lastly, last one, always look to the numbers yourself. In the 1980s, Jeff McConney prepared my small shot, and I told him, you're fired. And I meant questions every payment. Jeff got the message, and now he does a terrific job. Okay, so it confirms, I guess, what Jeff said yesterday. Jeff said, yeah, he got fired for just paying bills that he should have been paying. So prosecutor says no further questions. Okay, so we got some excerpts from the book in. Neat. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, comes out. Quick question. Do you know how much the ghostwriter did of this book? No, I don't. Who designs the cover of your books when you write them? She said, we have a whole department that does that. So it's not entirely the author that does it? Well, no. Well, we want to make the author happy. Nothing more. Any redirect? Says, okay, let's turn back to this 413 F through H. Your Honor, we offer these as exhibits. Trump's attorney says, hold on, Your Honor. Maybe approach. I have to talk to you. Susan Necheles remains back at the defense table. Todd Blanche goes up to the bench with the prosecutor. They talk. Nobody knows what they're saying. Back from the sidebar at the bench. Government moves. Your Honor, we enter these into evidence. There's an objection. Judge says, objection, overruled. So the government shows Franklin, Susan, back up on the bench, says, what's this, Susan? Well, that's the epigraph page. And the largest quote is by DJT. And how about this? It says, Meredith was just outside my office door. And how about this? It says, thanks offered to Random House staff. Does this indicate that an author was very involved in the book? Yes. And how about this? It says, God is in the details. Sign your own checks. People see it and they screw you less. No further questions. Short recross. Your Honor, he says, leave 414G up there. It says, we don't have exhibits, so just blow that last page up. Just zoom in on that. Susan, what does that say? It says, Meredith McIver thanking people. He said, okay, nothing more. All right, so whatever that was for. So judge says, okay, you can step down. Now, counsel, please approach. Long sidebar. They're up there for a while. Trump and his defense attorney, Emile Beauvais, they're talking at the defense table, and then the people call Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels walks in, stands up there. You tell the truth, tell the truth, whole truth. I got? I do. Stormy, please tell me about your family. Stormy Daniels says, well, I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now I live in Florida with my partner. My parents split up when I was 4, and I went to a strict Christian school. It was all paid for by my father, and I was raised by my mother. Prosecutor's like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. Did you have any hobbies in school, Stormy? Well, I was a newspaper editor. I was in the 4-H club. I was the Baton Rouge Ballet Company. A friend introduced me to dancing one time, and it turned out it was exotic dancing when I was in high school. And so I thought, it was better than my other job, shoveling manure. And there was another quote that you'll see out there that she was making way more money in one night than shoveling manure for 8 hours a day. And so why did you move out, Stormy? Well, my mother was neglectful. She left me alone. She wasn't even an addict, just not a good mom. And at some point, Miss Daniels, did you do nude modeling? She says, yes, I did. You had to have credentials or credits to be the star. And so I went to Pose to go on tour as a featured entertainer, and I did that when I was 21. Did you work in the adult film industry? She says, I was a clothed extra for a while. But then a famous adult film director saw me, and I got a contract. Now, do you write and direct adult films, Stormy? It's while we're even having this conversation in court right now. But she says, yeah, there are some with dialogue. You see them on late night TV with the sex cut out, but I've directed over 150 films. Sick. And I've got awards for screenplays. Now, have you been in films and TV? She says, oh yeah, I was. I was in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and I was in a TV show with Courtney Cox. And were you on a podcast? She says, yeah, I was. I was on Beyond the Norm. I was on Female Serial Killers, talking about UFO, porn, politics. When you were on these podcasts, Stormy, did you discuss Mr. Trump? Yes, I did. And in 2009, did you explore running for Senate in Louisiana, which we talked about at our debrief before the trial started? She says, yeah, I did. I was going to run for Senate. There was actually a draft Stormy campaign. No, that was your campaign to oppose David Vitter in the Republican primary. He was anti-woman. He did some unsavory things, and David Vitter would never debate me. Thank you, Stormy. I want to turn to Lake Tahoe now in 2006. Tell me what happened in Lake Tahoe in 2006. Well, I was at a golf course. Wicked, which must be some adult company, sponsored a hole on the golf course. Yes, I'm aware that it's funny, she says. And I don't know if the jury got that or not, like they sponsored a hole on the golf course. We're like, oh, that's disgusting. Did you meet Donald Trump? Yes, I did. On the course. Wicked's owner introduced me as director. This is our great director. And what did you know about Mr. Trump when you met him? Well, I hadn't seen Celebrity Apprentice, but I remember him in cameos and wrestling. Wrestling's a pretty big deal in Louisiana, and so that's where I knew him. Well, what happened next? Well, he asked me about my films, and I saw him talk with other gentlemen. And Stormy, while we're here, I just want to ask you, do you see Mr. Trump in the courtroom? Can you identify him and an article of clothing, please? Identity is something they always have to prove in a criminal trial to prove that the defendant is, there, and the person actually who did the thing. Yeah, there he is, seated at the defense table with a blue suit. Prosecutor says to Stormy, I want to hand you this thumb drive and show you People's Exhibit 226. This is the golf room photo. Can you describe this photo to us? Says, yeah, Trump's in a red hat, and you've seen the photo. And how about this photo? Well, that's Trump on the golf course. And Stormy, what did you tell Mr. Trump's bodyguard when he said Mr. Trump would like to take you to dinner? Oh, I said, F no. But did you give Keith Schiller your number? And of course, Keith Schiller is the Trump bodyguard. She says, yeah, I did. And did you discuss the invitation with anyone after you got invited to go to dinner with Trump? She said, I did. My media guy, Mike, I told him. I was supposed to go to a wicked dinner, but I wanted to avoid it. There were cat fights and stuff. And so he told me, you should go. It'll make a great story. What could possibly go wrong? She laughed. What could possibly go wrong? Huh? Like I'm in court. Oh, here we are. Just an innocent dinner. So I texted with Keith, the bodyguard for Trump, and I arranged to go to Mr. Trump's hotel, Harrah's. And what happened next? Well, when I got there, Keith, the bodyguard, told me to go up to the penthouse. And so Keith was at the door, and he said, well, hey, Stormy, nice to see you. Good evening. You look very nice tonight. And when you got there at this hotel, what were your expectations? She said, oh gosh, nothing. I thought we were going to get dinner. And so you went up to the penthouse, and what happened next? Well, as soon as I walked in there, he came down the stairs. And what was he wearing? Stormy says he was wearing silk pajamas. And so I asked him, I said, Trump, did you steal Hugh Hefner's pajamas? And so I just told him to change. I said, get up there and go change. And he did. He came back down in a dress shirt and pants. He says, this hotel room that he was in was 3 times the size of my apartment. So did you go to dinner or did you stay and talk? We talked. And what did you discuss? Well, I told Trump where I grew up. He asked, do I have siblings? I told him I do not. He asked me if I had a boyfriend. And I said, no, at the time I don't have a boyfriend. Did you tell him about your hard childhood, Stormy? She says, yes, I did. Something, objection, sustained from the defense, and that is stricken. So I don't know if it's that statement specifically. Did you tell him about your hard childhood? Yes, objection, if that was stricken, or if something, if she said something right after that, but it's stricken. So he asked me about the adult film industry, whether we have unions, whether we get residuals for our work. Usually people ask about the sexy stuff, but he didn't. He wanted to know the business operations. Did Trump ask you if you'd been tested? Yes. I told him, yeah, clearly I'm clean. Wicked is a condom mandatory company, but I'm allergic to latex. He's like, okay. So I asked him about wrestling because he knew Vince McMahon at the time, and he had a cameo where he'd lost something or something. And Judge Mercan says, Ms. Daniels, could you slow down, please? Court reporter might be having some trouble or something. The judge says, please slow down. Talking fast. So she says, well, he was supposed to get his head shaved if he lost the bet. And I told him he wouldn't look so good with a head shaved. Trump said, don't worry, it's wrestling, okay? It's all scripted, even though I'm not sure about that. Did you ask Trump about Melania? He said, I did. And Trump said, don't worry, we don't even sleep in the same room. And so he just kept cutting me off, He'd ask a question, then not let me finish. And I told him, you're very rude. And so Stormy says, I ended up spanking him. And after that, he acted much better. He said, I should be in The Apprentice. And I told him, even you don't have that much power, Trump. He said, you remind me of my daughter, blonde and beautiful. And to me, Stormy says it made sense. What else did he say to you about The Apprentice, Stormy? He said that he could tell me the challenge. He couldn't let me win, but at least not lose right at the beginning. Now, I wanted to direct some non-adult films. They have big budgets and better catering. And so I thought, how about I get into some actual legitimate work? This sounds great. And did you call another friend during this time? Stormy says, yeah, I did. I called a neighbor, Alana. I had run into her and I knew she didn't believe where I was. So I called her and I put her on speaker. He said hello. Trump said hello to her. He said, why don't you come over and hang out with us? And she didn't call back. So Stormy's there. Like, my friend's not going to believe this. Calls, puts him on speaker. Trump's right here. Government says, Ms. Daniels, at some point, did you use the restroom? She says, yeah. Judge says, okay, before we get into all that, let's take a break here. We fast forward through the break and we're back. So Ms. Daniels, I was asking you, when you were there with Mr. Trump in that hotel room, did you need to use the restroom? I did, yeah. And I was instructed by Mr. Trump to go through the bedroom to the facilities. It was a leather-looking toiletry bag on the counter. So I went into the bathroom and there was Trump's toiletry bag right there. What was in Trump's toiletry bag? I don't know why this has anything to do with what's happening here, but she says, I looked, there was Old Spice in there, which is good stuff. It's pretty solid. Stormy says, there were gold tweezers in there. When I came out, Mr. Trump was on the bed in his boxer shorts, and Stormy, who is a professional sex worker, says, I was startled. Never seen this before. Oh my gosh, a naked man. I felt like the room spun in slow motion. She got all woozy. I've never been in a situation like this before. I've only directed 150 films. Like, if you stand up too fast, I thought, oh my God, what did I misread to get here? He was posing on the bed. Stormy shocked. And so he stood up, not in a threatening manner, says Stormy. He said, if you ever want to get out of that trailer park, objection, sustained, move on. So what next? Stormy Daniels says, I felt drugged. Objection, overruled. No evidence of that at all. Defense freaks out at the defense table. Trump speaks with Beauvais, who again moves to the far seat. Todd Blanche is up at the sidebar with the judge. There's no evidence of this at all. Prosecutor says, well, they didn't know what my next question was. Okay. What's your next question? I'm going to confirm that she wasn't drugged. Okay, fine. So then the judge says, all right, fine, go back and ask that question. Defense says, fine. They go back. Prosecutor says, okay, so Stormy, you said you felt drugged, but you were not drugged though, right? She says, no, but there was a power imbalance. So basically I was practically drugged because of the power imbalance. Miss Daniels, did you have sex with Trump on the bed? Yes. In the missionary, objection, sustained. Okay, again, we don't need all the details. She said, I was staring at the ceiling, wishing I was somewhere else. Objection, sustained. Miss Daniels, was he wearing a condom? No, he wasn't. He said, whoa, that was great. When he finished, we should get together again soon. And he called me Honey Bunch after this. And what did you say, Stormy? Nothing. I didn't. He didn't even give me his cell phone number. Now, Stormy, did he ever express concern about his wife finding out? No. And did you tell anyone? Very few. I'm ashamed I hadn't stopped it. I didn't want people I was dating to find out. What, that you're a porn star sex worker? Did you tell anyone? Well, I was ashamed, like I hadn't stopped it. You do this for a living, lady. Did you later remember some things? She says, yeah, in the book, objection, sustained, approach. Now there's a sidebar. They're up at the judge's bench for a while. Question back to Stormy. Did you see him in Lake Tahoe again? Yeah, I did. In a nightclub there. Keith had called me and said Mr. Trump would be there. It would be in public, so I went. So again, right, it's the same story. So Stormy Daniels, who was so traumatized, okay, she was like shaking, she was ashamed, she was victimized, she was basically raped is what she's saying here without actually being, just kind of staring at the ceiling like, like what's going on? Like this whole thing was some abusive assault on her because of the power imbalance. She went to his penthouse. And for what? Even if this is true, right? If you believe her story, which nobody does. So I went. She was so victimized. She went back again. So then Ben Roethlisberger of the Steelers was there. And Mr. Trump called me his little friend Stormy and then said Ben would walk me to my room. And so did Ben walk you to your room? Yeah, he did. And did you tell anyone then about any of this? Yeah, there was another Keith I told, and that was my photographer. Stormy, would Mr. Trump then call you? Yeah, he would. And I would put him on speakerphone. And so a bunch of other people heard him. Did he know that he was on speakerphone? No. And so why did you continue to take his calls if you were so, abused? Well, my publicist bragged about it. And my publicist was saying, see, I told you so. And judge says, Stormy, please just answer the questions. Okay. This judge is getting a little bit like, oh gosh, am I allowing this trial to derail itself in my own courtroom? Is this going off keister here? The answer, judge, is yes. So why did you continue to take his calls? Stormy admits, I wanted to be on The Apprentice. She has an ulterior motive. She's biased. This is what other people have said, that they saw her at Trump Tower and it was about booking for The Apprentice. I wanted to be on The Apprentice. Now, did Trump give you the phone number of his assistant? Asked the prosecutor. He says, yeah, Ronna, I put her in my phone. And remember, Ronna testified very early in this trial. And she said, yeah, I put Stormy in the contact list on the computer server. So Stormy, who was again victimized, just zoned out staring at the ceiling, so traumatic. Did you go to the launch of Mr. Trump's vodka? She's like, oh yeah, I definitely did. He introduced me to Karen McDougal, who was there. And then he spent most of the time talking to my friend. We lied. We were flying out of LAX on a girls trip. Did you go to Trump Tower back during that meeting? Yes. And I was also dancing in a club, so I invited Trump. It was a public place, so it was safer. Objection sustained. Did you go to Trump Tower? He said he was still working on getting me on The Apprentice. And so, yeah, I did. And he introduced me again, like a fourth or fifth time. Did you go see Mr. Trump in LA? Definitely. Oh yeah. He invited me to his bungalow. And by then my publicist was my boyfriend. And so he drove me around and waited outside. So the publicist boyfriend, Stormy hasn't told him evidently that Trump basically assaulted her, even though there was no assault at all. And he drove me and waited outside. And so that was common. I guess he would just drive her to her shows and just pimp her out. All right, honey, get out and go do some work for me. So that was pretty common. Mr. Trump was watching TV, a documentary about sharks. And so when you were in there, tell me about what happened with Trump when you were there, when he was watching about the sharks. Well, he kept making sexual advances. Well, sharks, bring out some of that testosterone, that adrenaline, kind of a manly animal, So he touched my leg. Stormy says, how did you respond? Well, I told him I was on my period and there was no progress on getting on The Apprentice. I said, well, I can't right now because, and I'm not on a show. So I'm not interested in having intercourse with you until I get on a show. So then I stopped answering his calls. But then he told me that Jenna Jameson would be on, who was another porn star. So when you didn't get on The Apprentice, Stormy, did you move on? How was your life? She says, oh, it was awesome. I moved to Texas. Sorry, Texas. And I became a rank equestrian, going back to spend time with her people, the horses. So objection, judge says, I'll allow it. Did you agree to be interviewed by In Touch? She says, yes, I did. Someone had sold my story. And so Gina Rodriguez told me to just get out there and take control. And $15,000 is what they paid me for this interview. And so I did it. So you did an interview with In Touch? Yes. How long was that interview? Well, 10 or 20 minutes. It was pretty simple over by phone. They never ran the story. Did you know why? No. Prosecutor says, judge, may we approach? They go up, talk to the judge. There's a short sidebar. They come back. Government says, Miss Daniels, did you have an encounter in a parking lot in Las Vegas? She says, yes, I did. A man approached me and he told me not to keep telling my story about Mr. Trump. And did you tell your partner, publicist, about this? Your pimp? No, I didn't. He was having mental issues. That's, of course, right? Nobody ever knows about. There's no corroborating witness. So some random person approaches her. She doesn't tell anybody about it. Then it comes convenient for her to talk about it. And suddenly it happened. Did you become aware your story was on the dirty.com? She said, yeah. I mean, I don't read that site, but I wanted it taken down. I'd already been threatened. And so what did Gina say about this? Well, she said, could maybe we get Keith Davidson to get it taken down? Keith Davidson's the same lawyer who negotiated these deals in the first place. And did Keith Davidson succeed in getting the story taken down? She says, yes, it did. It came down. And Stormy, in 2015, once Mr. Trump was running for president, were you told that you could sell your story for even more? Yeah, I was. I was advised by a lawyer to have a press conference, to just go out there and put him on blast. And do you remember back during this time when you were, apparently trying to sell your story for maximum amount of money? Do you remember that the Access Hollywood tape came out, the grab him by the purse tape? Stormy says, yeah, I did. Gina told me about it. And so I wanted to get the story out because of the threat, because somebody, threatened me in Vegas. So I'm going to come out and say it. Did you find that Donald Trump and Michael Cohen at some point wanted to buy your story, Stormy? This is, I guess we're getting into the transaction. She said, yeah, it would be good. My husband wouldn't find out, but I'd have paperwork. So she's a terrible wife as well. Going to keep stuff from her husband and pocket 130 grand. I didn't care about the 130 grand, she says. That amount didn't matter to me, right? She doesn't care about the money. Let's put a pin in that. We no longer lived in California, which is very expensive. And so I just wanted the paperwork so she doesn't get murdered, right? Were you ever presented with an agreement, Stormy? She says, yes, I was. And what is this? Put it on the screen. Oh, that's a Keith Davidson email. That's her lawyer. That's an email from Keith Davidson to Michael Cohen. I said I wanted this deal done before the nomination. And so Keith Davidson is sending to Cohen, get this done before the nomination. Prosecutor says, do you mean the election? Not the nomination, right? Yes, the election. This was the side letter. I was Peggy and Trump was David Dennison. So getting it done before the election because she knows she'll have maximum leverage at that point. Her story is only valuable because it is threatening to Trump's electoral prospects in her mind. It has maximum damage capability, which means he'll pay maximum amount to make it go away. So what is this list, Stormy? She says this is the list of people who knew. One is a Keith, but it's not Keith Davidson. Judge Merchan says, all right, everybody, it's lunchtime. We're taking a break and we're back. Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, says, Your Honor, before we begin, the defense moves for a mistrial. Gasps all over the courtroom. Your Honor, we do that based on this morning's testimony. What we heard from Stormy Daniels was prejudicial, and it differs from the story that she was peddling before. There was no testimony about no condom, the spacing in the room, the power dynamic. This is all ridiculous. There was testimony about a second sexual advance, totally irrelevant to this case, and she kept saying it was in a public place. What the heck is the jury supposed to do with that, Your Honor? There was objection sustained, but it's still prejudicial. And so you came in here and you said, Your Honor, that there would be guardrails in here to stop Stormy Daniels and her testimony from going off rails, but it didn't work. This is an issue. And so we're going to cross-examine her shortly, presumably, but that's not really the issue here. What she testified today was about consent, was about danger. It's not what she was selling in 2016. It had nothing of that in her original story. And so her testimony today goes to the defendant's motive. This is the prosecutor now. So Todd Blanche wraps up, okay? He's furious. He's saying none of this is relevant. And let's see where this goes before I comment on it. Prosecutor says, Your Honor, that's ridiculous. There should not be a mistrial here at all. Stormy's testimony today goes to Trump's motive. The lack of a condom has been out there for a long time. Everyone knows that. There were details that she only remembered after a movie in 2019. And they opened the door on that, by the way. They put in an exhibit saying that the 2011 threat was not true. And so she's just rebutting that. And so some of this is going to come out on cross, and I hope again on redirect, says the prosecutor. But Stormy testified that she was not directly threatened and that she did not say no. So the judge says, listen, I can rule on this. I have enough. I agree that there were things that would have been better left unsaid. So this is a judge, in my opinion, making an admission that this was bad. And that came out from the prosecutor during the direct exam. The judge says, well, I do think that the witness was hard to control, but I do not believe at this point that a mistrial is warranted. He says, I was surprised that there were not more objections from the defense, which is totally ridiculous because they objected at the very beginning. We put a pin in that at the start of this. And at one point, the court sua sponte objected. So the judge says, well, if you want, I'll give a limiting instruction as to the 2011 parking lot incident. And Susan Necheles, Trump's lawyer, says, sorry, judge, we have already moved in advance on that. Okay. We had already tried to keep this all out and you denied that. He said, no, that's not accurate, Miss Necheles. That's not accurate, says the judge. You did not try to keep this out. She says, yeah, we sure as hell did. It's why we didn't object all the time because you already overruled us. You already said no. So we just let it go. And the judge is backpedaling here, right? That's not accurate, Miss Necheles. I didn't screw up. So I'm going to deny your motion for a mistrial at this time. Do you want to discuss a limiting instruction so I can try to put this back in the bag? There's a sidebar. They come back. Judge announces, now, as discussed at the bench, we're going to take some more time. And so, Miss Necheles, you'll be back to me before Thursday morning. Is that right? She says yes. So then Merchan, the judge, says, all right, everybody, listen. With the consent of the defense, Miss Hoffinger, Susan, who is doing the direct exam of Stormy, she has stepped out to give some instructions to her witness. She's going to go tell Stormy to stay focused and only answer what is asked. So the defense is there. Prosecutor goes out, has a little powwow with Stormy, saying, Stormy, you're going to wreck our case here. Please stay on script here. And they bring her back in. Witness enters, jury comes in, and we're back on the screen. Miss Daniels, can you tell me what's up here? This is about delays in payment, that you didn't get paid for some time. Can you tell me what this email says? Put the email on the screen. Stormy Daniels is reading from the document. It says, no funds have been received, from an email. My client says that the deal is off unless the funds are received by 5 p.m. Signed, Keith. She says, it says the ab intit. I have no idea what that means, says Stormy. Prosecutor says it's ab initio. It's from the beginning, from the very start. Stormy says, well, I spoke to Slate and they weren't going to pay me. And so at some point there was a new agreement, right? Yeah. And this new agreement, did you sign it? Yes, I did. And the side letter agreement, Stormy, did you sign that too? Yes, I did. I signed that one on October 28th, 2016, just, a week before the election. Now, did Keith Davidson take a few, I guess maybe money, take a few? Yeah. And Gina? Yeah. Did the Wall Street Journal reach out to you, Stormy? No, I don't think so. Okay. Well, was Mr. Trump ultimately elected? Stormy says, yes, he was. And how was your 2017? Stormy says it was great. 2017 was my best ever. I got a horse riding award. My neighbors didn't know that they lived next to Stormy Daniels. Only my mom did. And what's this? Well, that's Keith D's denial. So people were denying that this affair took place. So I guess Keith, the lawyer, denied it. Was that denial cleverly misleading? Objection sustained. So we get some objections now that are being sustained. Did you see this 2018 story, Stormy? She says, I did. It outed me. That story hurt my daughter and her father. Objection sustained. Stormy, were you scheduled to go on the Jimmy Kimmel show? Yeah, I was. I was getting ready and Gina brought me the clothes and Keith Davidson, my lawyer. He had another statement that he came over and he had me sign. So I signed it as Stormy Daniels. But unlike any other time I signed, it was a tip-off to Kimmel. And Michael Cohen was also writing a book at the time. And it made me mad because Michael Cohen could talk about this story and I couldn't talk about it. Stormy, did Michael Cohen file a restraining order against you? Yeah. It means she's like a psycho, right? Did you hire Michael Avenatti? Yeah. We canceled the NDA and we got fees. And so in your book, Full Disclosure, Stormy, does it describe both the encounter with Mr. Trump and does it describe incidents in your childhood? Yes, it does. And I later found out that Michael Avenatti had done some editing. And so maybe those stories weren't true. So blaming Michael, who says that she is also fraudulently conveying documentary money from NBC. Did Avenatti file a defamation case against Donald Trump? She says, yeah, he did, but I didn't agree to it. I thought it was risky. And she owes him like 600 grand on that for attorney's fees and a false, a meritless charge, meritless claim. Government says to Stormy, did Avenatti put out a sketch regarding the 2011 threat? And did Mr. Trump tweet con job when that came out? Yes, I did. Was Mr. Trump awarded legal fees when you sued him? Yes, he was. 600 grand. Is Mr. Avenatti your lawyer now? Stormy laughs. No. He's in jail for like 19 years. And how about those legal fees that you owe to Trump? Have you paid those legal fees, Stormy? No, I don't have the money and I didn't think it was fair anyways. Do those legal fees have any relation to this case at all? No, they don't. Stormy, did you go on any podcasts with Michael Cohen? Ugh, gosh. Yes, I did. I did it because I wanted to hear him apologize and Michael Cohen did. And then we did one up with Michael Avenatti. So they were podcasting each other for sure. And did you get $100,000 from a documentary called Peacock? She says, yes, I did. Maybe that's from Peacock. I don't know. So she got 100 grand from some sort of a documentary. So now they want to show her some of these images. This is Government 408. This is a Truth Social post. It is Horseface, which honestly, she should cherish that nickname since she is an equestrian award-winning horse rider with a horse face. It's perfect. From the post, the jailbird Michael Cohen, Trump calls him a sleazebag. Government says, has Trump ever called you a sleazebag before? She says, yes. And is the post false? It is. No further questions. So Trump's posts are false. She's already lost a defamation claim, owes him 600 grand for that. She has some of the least credible stories we've ever heard here. She's a professional sex worker who has sex for money and then gets a little bit woozy and is suddenly a victim of attack. She's trying to Me Too this whole situation out of nowhere. There was a power imbalance. Whatever, lady. You were trying to get on The Apprentice. You went there 5 times, 6 times to go try to do that. And suddenly you're under attack now. So it is now your witness. Trump's lawyer, Susan Necheles, stands up. He says, good morning, Stormy. Good afternoon. I represent President Trump. Now, isn't it true, Stormy, that you've met with prosecutors and you rehearsed your testimony with them? She says, no, I didn't rehearse anything. But you pretended to be cross-examined, didn't you? No. Well, you said mock, right? You said you had to mock something. She says, well, that's no longer right. That's not what I really meant, is we didn't do a mock anything, and so I don't think that's right. So no. Says, okay, I'm sure. Now, Stormy, you also said that you did porn for more money, didn't you? You did porn for money, right? She says, don't we all? It's kind of what we do here. Like, we all work for money, I guess. So I guess she's equating what's happening in our courts to pornographers, which I guess is not that far off. I mean, the Democrats on MSNBC are acting accordingly with what Mercan's doing. So don't we all? That's what we do here, she says. Susan says, all right, listen, Stormy, let's just be clear about this. Isn't it true? You hate President Trump, don't you? Yes, I do. And you wrote that you'll dance when he's jailed, right? Can you show me that? Sure. Well, you wrote when he's selected to go to jail. Did you say you just laugh about it? Well, someone else wrote the word select. So I didn't say that, but I did think it's funny. And it's not because you think this is all funny, right? You don't think this is funny, do you? You thought that was funny, Trump going to jail, that's funny, but you don't think this is funny. Like, this is not a joke to you, is it? No, I don't think so. And so isn't it true you owe him about $500,000 in legal fees? Well, I'm not sure of the money or the dates. I don't know. Well, I do. I'll know the dates. How about March 2022, Stormy? Isn't it true you were ordered to pay attorney's fees for the appeal too, right? So the judgment and the appeal. Yes, yeah. And you got even more money owed to pay in 2023 because of your frivolous suit against objection sustained. So they can't get into that. Susan says, Stormy, you do have money, right? You said you had no money, but you do have some money, right? Well, we all have money, but you have said that you are never going to pay that money. Didn't you say that? Correct. Your Honor, I move to offer her tweet into evidence. There's an objection and that's sustained for whatever reason. There's a sidebar and now it's accepted. The tweet says, from Stormy, I will go to jail before I pay a penny, in absolute violation of a court order. So Stormy, when you posted that tweet, that was you basically saying that you didn't care about a federal order from a judge. Isn't that right? She said, well, I'm not going to pay a dime for telling the truth. And so you wrote this, didn't you? You said, I don't owe him shit and I'll never give that orange turd a dime. Didn't you say that? Yes, I did. And you make fun of how he looks too, right? He did it first. You made fun of how he looks, right? But he made fun of me first. And so you are refusing to fill out an assets form so that you don't have to log your assets to pay Trump money. No, that's false, says Stormy. And did you give an interview to Jeff Toobin and say you would not fill out the form? Did you do that? You're not going to pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars? Well, they asked about my daughter on the form. Well, only her name. So let me show you J10A. Do you recognize it? She says, yeah, now this is an email from my attorney. And you only partially filled out this form, didn't you? Objection sustained. Your Honor, may we approach here? Trump sits down with Blanche at the defense table. There's a sidebar. So we see we're trying to get Stormy pinned down on disclosure of her assets, right? She owes Trump a bunch of money. This goes to her bias and her motivation. Why might she want Trump found guilty? Why might she want him imprisoned? So she doesn't have to pay him $500,000, right? If she owes him that money, she'd like to see him also burned. So none of her testimony is credible at all based on that alone. But you wrote this, I don't owe him crap, right? And I'll never give that orange turd a dime. So she's got some pretty animated bias here. And the court says, fill out a form because we're going to go take your money because you owe it to Trump. It's a court order. Your wages are going to be garnished. All your little video direction, they're all our money now. So get out there and ride some horses, man, because you got to earn that $600K back. She's not filling out the form. Do you recognize this? You refuse to fill out the form. You only partially filled it out, right? Objection. Judge sustains it. You can't even talk about that. May we approach, Your Honor? Now, Susan Necheles comes back and says, show her page number something. And the judge screams, take that down. Okay, so they must have put it up on the screen and he wants her to show it to Stormy first before publishing it. Says, okay, it's off the screen. Judge screams it. Says, okay, well, let me hand you this then, Stormy. Okay, is this document? It's only partially filled out. It says in here income, but you say unknown on this document from a federal judge, right? She says, well, I won't fill out info that endangers my daughter. Well, I mean, it asks you what cars you own, right? And you're not going to answer what cars you own, right? She says, yeah, I'm not answering. Do you own a home, Stormy? She says, no. But you tweeted that you made so much in porn that you could just buy your ranch home, didn't you? Yeah, but we didn't buy it. And I don't remember saying that. I would have to see the tweet. She says, okay, fine. J17, here it is. I have it. You just posted in your tweet, you said, I just paid for my ranch with my disgusting degenerate behavior. I just paid for my ranch by getting railed by horses or whatever. I meant pay rent. I didn't pay for my ranch. I meant pay rent. Are you making money claiming to have had sex for more than a decade, right? Really, she says. Are you making money claiming to have had sex for more than a decade, right? I make money telling my story. It also cost me money to do that. Stormy, didn't you speak with Gloria Allred? Yeah, I did. I told her I had sex with Donald Trump. And is this your book, Full Disclosure? Yes. And in your book, don't you say that Gina Rodriguez set up a call with Gloria Allred? Yes. And you told Gloria Allred that you did not have sex with President Trump, right? No, I told her I did have sex with him. Well, let me show you. Stormy, hold on. You say you left out sex. Well, later I told her that we did, but you didn't put it in the book, did you, Stormy? Well, I would not go with force, so I said no. She asked if it was forced, and I said no, so I just said no. So you're just making this up now then, aren't you? I mean, you're kind of just making it up right now. Calls her out. It's all just made up. Says, well, I didn't trust her. And it taught you that if you want to make money off of President Trump, that you have to claim you had sex with him, right? No, but it seems to be that way. It's the only way, I guess, maybe I can make money. That is a wild admission. It taught you if you want to make money off Trump, you have to claim to have sex. No, but it seems to be that way. And when you spoke with In Touch and you gave them their interview, you were trying to sell your story, weren't you? You were trying to sell it, right? Not just give it away. You said you don't care about money, but you were trying to sell it. Now, at the same time, you were telling In Touch that you had sex with President Trump while threatening to sue the dirty.com to take it down. And she says, well, the dirty.com happened after the parking lot threat. She says, are you sure about that? You were saying it was bullshit. And I'm sorry for the profanity. We're just going to say it. While getting paid $15,000 to say it was true. Because this is what Stormy was saying. You were saying it was BS while getting paid 15 grand to say it was true. So you were having both sides of this, right? She says, I did Anderson Cooper and they didn't pay me anything. Well, we'll get to that. I'm not there yet. The In Touch was a 22-page transcript and you had that conversation in 15 minutes. And Stormy, after the threat that you got in the Vegas parking lot, after you got threatened, did you go to exercise class? I went to the restroom there, okay? So I got attacked in Vegas and then I went to the restroom and I waited for the next class. And I was crying in the bathroom, but I said my daughter had a diaper blow up. She said, oh, you were crying. That's interesting. This is the first time we heard that you were crying in the bathroom after your Vegas attack. Well, I did just say she had a blowout. She gestures at the jury, whatever that means. I don't know. Susan Necheles continues. Okay, so you didn't even tell the father of your baby that you got assaulted in Vegas, did you? No, I didn't. And you said nothing about this until 7 years later with your daughter in danger is when this first came out? That's right. So Stormy, let's be clear. Isn't it true that you actually made up this threat to explain why you never said you had sex with Trump, right? No, that's not true. I did say it on a radio station in Tampa as well. But you told Anderson Cooper that you never said it before. So I was scared. That's why I said that. And both you and Michael Cohen, you hope to make money if President Trump is, right? Objection sustained. Susan says, Stormy, isn't it true that you commissioned a sketch of the person who threatened you in Vegas? She says, I didn't, but Michael Avenatti did. Shall we take a break? Judge says, yeah. Of course. We're back. Stormy is going to be back on the stand on Thursday. We're not going to finish with Cross today. Trump's lawyer, Susan Necheles, continues. Says, Ms. Daniels, in E, you were quoted. You said in that magazine, you said the story is BS. You said that. That's your word. But didn't you say he vehemently denied to E hooking up with President Trump? She says, I don't remember that. So you're saying that where the article says you vehemently deny the story, that's false. So they publish, they say you deny that. You say that's false. Yes. And you told the dirty to take it down. No, I didn't do it. Keith did. He was Gina's lawyer and I authorized him to take it down. Stormy, in 2011, the story wasn't worth much, right? But then it was worth a lot more in 2016, wasn't it? She says, well, I set a free press conference, so I didn't care about the money because I did a free press conference and I set one. Yeah, but you never held it. You never did hold your press conference. You say you were threatened if you spoke, and so you went out and spoke? You didn't tell anybody about the threat and you decided that you were going to go speak? Stormy says, well, it was a new ball game, okay? I had college confidence. I listened to Brene Brown or something. Trump's lawyer, Necheles, says, in this text, Gina said, I have Stormy Daniels. So Gina says, I have Stormy Daniels. Please read Dylan Howard. Stormy says, we already denounced it previously. Now, I don't want to comment that if I don't understand what they are talking about. Necheles says, well, didn't you say this in a quote? She had sex with him. She wants $100K. Sounds like you're interested in the money there, Stormy, doesn't it? She says, well, I authorized Gina Rodriguez to shop the story. I wanted to get the story out and make some money too. Oh man, And she just admitted it. At the end of the day, I wanted to make some money too. Yeah, you wanted to be on The Apprentice. You wanted to shop your story around. All of these little stories are just made up so that you can justify bringing your claim. This happened decades ago, and it only became valuable. Trump was only willing to put this story to bed, whether it happened or not, because he was on the verge of winning the election, right? And so she says now some leverage is now worth a lot more. Even though she had repeatedly denied it, she's trying to get her bag. So this was a very spicy day. Now we're going to come back on Thursday, no trial on Wednesdays, and we're going to come back with Stormy Daniels back on the bench, continuing with cross-examination here. And so, of course, we want to shout out Matthew Russell Lee, send him some PayPal, send him some Venmo, subscribe to his Substack, follow him on X for delivering this amazing reporting. We also have President Trump, who came out and spoke after that testimony, and let's see what he had to say about this.
So this was a very big day.
That's true.
A very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. Just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster. This whole case is just a disaster. If you read the legal scholars, you'll see, because they're writing about it, they've never seen anything quite like it. And neither have I. I should be out campaigning right now. We're leading in all the polls. I'd like to be campaigning. We'll be leading by a lot more. But I just want to appreciate the job you're doing. It's not easy standing there all day waiting, but hearing the same things that we're hearing. On another matter, as you know, it's Biden's backers that seem to be funding what's going on with the Palestinians. They're probably not
Yeah, a bunch of Biden
Palestinians.
donors. We talked about that on Locals this morning.
Agitators, bad agitators, really bad. And I think our government ought to find out who they are, where they're from, and treat them the same way as they do the J6 hostages. You got to treat them the same way. These are agitators. They're really hurting our country. It's happening all over the country in cities. You saw what happened last night at the Metropolitan Museum. These are agitators. And in some of the colleges, I think it's about 20% student and 80% others. So this is a big problem, and they better nip it on the bud. And it's a problem from the left, not from the right. This is a problem from the left. And I hope you're going to stress that. The economy is not doing well. You see inflation is through the roof. They're not going to be able to lower interest rates. If they do, it's purely political. But it'll be very bad if they do. From the standpoint of getting rid of inflation, you have to get rid of the inflation. Inflation, as you probably have heard me say,
it's terrible.
It's a country buster. It busts countries.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And it has for 1,000 years. You go back and you look at old-time Germany, you look at a lot of countries that went through the kind of inflation we're going through, and they're busted. They are just broken up in many cases into little pieces, and that's what could actually happen to us. So we have to get inflation under control. We have to get prices down so that people can breathe, people can live, so they can live. But again, this was a very revealing day in court. Any honest reporter would say that. I would recommend you read Jonathan Turley and Andrew McCarthy and Alan Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett,
Watching the Watchers.
Mark Levin,
Watching the Watchers.
very talented people, and others. There's some incredible people out there that are writing about this trial. They're calling it a disgrace.
It is
It's
a disgrace, Mr. President.
In the meantime, I'm stuck. I'm here. Instead of being in Georgia, instead of being in New Hampshire, instead of being in Wisconsin, and all the different states that we wanted to be in, we're not able to be there because we're stuck in this trial, which everyone knows is a hoax. Thank you very much.
And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We covered two good whopper segments. Stormy Daniels pounded in trial during cross-examination, and we'll be back here on Thursday to watch the pounding continue. We also had Avenatti expose this fraud, which I think is very, very curious. That's a recorded phone call. They'll probably be able to investigate, see if those LLCs exist or what that trust looks like, and how Stormy was maneuvering and falsifying her own business records, all in New York and elsewhere. So, my friends, thank you for liking this video. Thanks for coming on back. We'll be back here tomorrow to talk about the Florida case, and there's a lot going on there. So, Jack Smith and forged cover sheets and all sorts of stuff we'll get into. So, we also have a members-only community. We do live streams in the mornings before we go live here at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have a ton of fun. We talk about a bunch of other stuff that we can't get into here on this live stream. We have a great community. We'd love to have you join us. It's a great way to support the show, meet some awesome people, and have some fun.